Perhaps the most mysterious crime of the century, the abduction in Portugal of a 3-year-old British girl, Madeleine Mccann, seems to have been solved. German police named the main suspect in the case and told why he had been hiding from the police for so long. The secret of Maddie McCann. The case of Maddie McCann's disappearance has already been called one of the most replicated stories of human disappearance in recent decades. She disappeared on May 7, 2007, from a locked room on Agostinho da Silva Street in the resort town of Praia da Luz. Her parents were having dinner with friends at a restaurant a few dozen meters from the apartment. Both families arrived with their children, so they took turns leaving the restaurant, checking on the sleep of their children and their friends' children. That's how Maddie's disappearance was discovered. A family friend stopped by the McCann's apartment on his way to find the two younger children sleeping soundly, but the older girl was not in the apartment or anywhere in the house. Since then, nothing has been known about Maddie, her whereabouts, or her fate. And this despite the fact that the operation to find Maddie and solve the crime was one of the most expensive in Britain, Europe and the world. It does not stop for a second, and only the British police spent more than £12 million on it. Victims of the investigation. We can't say that the investigation didn't have any leads at all. However, they made the search for truth more difficult than helpful. First, the Portuguese police distinguished themselves, who decided to solve a high-profile case in hot pursuit. A suspect was even selected, an Englishman who lived in the same Praia da Luz, whom the Portuguese called a pedophile and a murderer. The local police spent almost a month proving his guilt. As a result, the man was released, and British newspapers were forced to pay for the mistake of Portuguese law enforcement agencies. The ex-suspect sued them for libel and received more than £600,000 in damages. In June 2007, the investigation passed to the British police. However, the Portuguese colleagues have already done so that the British had to start not just from scratch, but also at the scene of the crime, which was politely called compromised. Nevertheless, the British police had their own suspects, to the horror of the whole of Britain. The police believed that the girl's death may have something to do with the parents themselves. There were grounds for suspicion. Indirect, of course. I remembered the contradictions in the testimony. In vain did the McCann's lawyers say that absolutely consistent testimony does not exist in nature. Suspicious traces of blood were found in the McCann's room and car. No charges were filed against the McCanns, but investigators, both Portuguese and British, made little secret of the fact that they considered Maddie McCann's father and mother not only as victims. And then the British tabloids began to tell terrible things about the McCanns. That they went to Portugal to have fun with swingers like them. And that's Fingerstvet to pedophilia one step. This version had one serious flaw. As the investigation continued, there was no further evidence that her parents had anything to do with Maddie's death. Interest in the case from the press has also gradually decreased, but until now, Jerry and Kate McCann are viewed with some distrust. More precisely, we watched it until the beginning of this month, when the German police suddenly issued a statement that they had almost solved the crime. Unfortunately, with that, all hope that Maddie was still alive was gone. In Berlin, they clearly said that they were investigating a murder, however, with a sexual background. The German mark. German law enforcement agencies were involved in the investigation of the disappearance of Maddie McCann around the end of 2010, when investigators began to take a serious interest not only in the Germans and Dutch, who love holidays in Praia da Luz almost as much as the British. By this time, Maddie's story was already well known in Europe and the world. At first, however, the German trail was rather cold. The turning point came in 2013, when the story of Maddie was told in one of the oldest TV shows in Germany, which has been published since 1967 on the ZDF channel, and tells just about such unsolved cases. Usually, all such programs end with an appeal for witnesses of any suspicious events that may have at least some connection with the case to contact the police or the editorial office of the program. So the police became aware that a certain Christian Bruckner, who practically lived in Praia da Luz in a nice minivan trailer Volkswagen T3, living on all sorts of not very constant earnings, may be involved in the case. However, according to the Portuguese police, his main source of income was not working in hotels and restaurants, but robberies in hotels and summer houses. The police, moreover, were already aware of Bruckner's unhealthy interest in little girls. In fact, this forced him to leave Germany at the beginning of the century and actually flee to Portugal. The police of the three countries admit that so far all the evidence against Bruckner is circumstantial. It was connected, however, directly to the house where the McCanns lived. He was there, according to the cell phone's geolocation, in this very house, at the exact time Maddie went missing. He even got a call from someone, and he answered it. In addition, the day after the disappearance of the girl, Bruckner re-registered his car, a Jaguar XJR6, to a person who seems to be a complete stranger to him. The name is still kept secret. It looked like Bruckner was either getting rid of the car urgently or paying for someone's silence. The police, of course, hurried to meet the new owner of the Jaguar. Of course, there are other clues that allowed the German police to decide to publicly appeal to potential witnesses to immediately report their suspicions to the police, and a couple of days later to declare that the suspect will soon be formally charged. Evidence linking Bruckner to the disappearance and murder of Maddie McCann, more than enough. According to representatives of the McCann family, who were informed about the new turns of the case, this is the first time that the investigation was so clearly focused on one particular criminal. This, the McCann's lawyers said, is encouraging. The charge will most likely be brought directly in prison. 41-year-old Christian Bruckner is currently serving time for the rape of a 72-year-old American tourist in the same Praia da Luz. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss more videos of mysterious stories and photos. Check out this playlist and I'll see you in the next video.